Welcome to part 3 of Chord Basics. So up till now we've done a few things of learning how to play bar chords. Now we're going to actually play something. So I've entitled this one Play Your Bar Chords Loud and Proud, because the song we're going to do is going to be Proud Mary, from the hard work that I'm sure you've been doing to date on practicing those chords that I gave you. Let's just recap what we covered so far, referring to the previous lesson, not the one before. So we needed to learn the notes on the E string, on the 6th string, and I made some points in there that the open E is the first note, and then on the 12th octave, the 12th fret, you have another E, so that takes you a full octave, which is 8 full notes. We'll worry about the musicality and how scales are structured later on. It's not important right now, but it is important to try and learn those notes as best you can. So you should have an E chord, a G chord, an A chord, and a C chord, and an F chord. So that's what we're aiming at here, and you'll be able to see that they're on the 1st fret for the F, the 3rd fret for the G, the 5th fret for the A, and the 6th fret for the 8th fret for the C. I also make a note that most guitars will have some dots on them, and usually those dots are 3rd if there is one on the 3rd, but always guitars with dots on them will have one on the 5th, the 7th, the 9th, and then the 12th. They're important markers because they can help you get to these bar chords very quickly. So your exercise was to try and play these E major shaped bar chords cleanly, so we should get a nice clean bar chord out of them. Alright, so moving along, what we will cover here, we've got to cover when we choose to use a bar chord as opposed to our chord library that we know, our 3-finger or perhaps 4-finger chords, which we're familiar with, which I'm calling cowboy chords. And you'll need to make some decisions on when you play those, but you'll have a whole lot more chords at your fingertips, literally, so you can choose different chords at different times. Then we're going to play our song, Proud Mary, using the E major shape, and I'm particularly going to focus on the introduction because that's the bit I want you to practice. And then we're going to look at using a different guitar, and I'll talk about how a bar chord can help you when you don't have a capo. It opens up a whole lot more options that you probably didn't have available before. So let's move right along and have a look at Proud Mary. I've just taken a snapshot of the guitar chart from Ultimate Guitar, so you should be able to find that easily, and also have a listen to Creedence Clearwater Revival playing that, and it's always good. But let's concentrate on the intro. Listen to it if you're unfamiliar with it, because this is what we're going to use these chords for. On the right hand side of the screen there, I've put down the frets that we'll be using to cover the chords you can see on the intro on the left. So if you're familiar with it, and I'm not going to concentrate on strumming patterns or anything like that, just on the bar chords. So I'll play it in video shortly, but generally we want it to sound something like this. Okay, you'll notice that I put D in there instead of putting a fret that we'll use, because I'm going straight to a cowboy chord there. It's a whole lot more efficient for me to try and play the D I'm familiar with in a D shape, rather than try and play a D up on the 10th fret, or we could play it on the 5th fret, and we'll worry about those shapes later on. But it's a whole lot more efficient to go from where I was sitting in my F bar chord to my normal D chord than to try to go back to a bar chord. So there's good reason to keep using I'll keep calling them the cowboy chords because you'll know what I'm talking about. Keep using the chords that you're familiar with. So I'll demonstrate something for you to practice when we get to the end of this little theory bit. I've made the for your visual, here's the chord charts, the fretboard diagrams, and how it looks. I've done them in sequence there, but what you will notice, they all look exactly the same, and the only thing different in them is that I point out the fret that they're starting on, the fret where your index finger is going to be. So the very first one's on the 8th fret. If you try with just your index finger on there, you'll get the nice, you need to get that nice clean sound without any, with no burrs in there at all. You want nice clean crisp notes, and then when you put your E major shape over the top of that, you'll get your C chord. Okay, so there's a C on the 8th fret, A on the 5th fret, and then you've got the G, F and the D. Alright, so let's jump out of that, the theory component of it, and we're going to go back to look at how we're going to do this. Alright, so starting up on the 8th fret, it's, so from the 8th to the 5th, I'll do that one again. Apologise for the noise of a jet coming over here, but I can't do anything about that. So 8, 5, 8, 5, A, 5, 3, F, which is first. And that's what we're aiming at. So practice that as much as you can. Try and get it fluid. If you're familiar with the song, listen to it. You might not be able to play along with it because sometimes they're not in exactly the same pitches as what your guitar will be in, but listen to Creedence Clearwater Revival and try and get that pattern. So it's a great pattern, and that's why I've chosen this particular song, is because that introduction is just fantastic for doing bar chords. So once again, what I'm going to do now, which I promised I'd do last time I was going into part 2, said I'm going to pick a different guitar. So here's a 12-string guitar. This is my Fender 12-string. I will almost guarantee it's harder to play a bar chord than any steel string dreadnought shaped guitar you might be using, but it's a matter of technique. Keep pressing down. You'll see I've sort of got my thumb about in the middle of the neck at the back. So you should be able to do exactly the same thing on this guitar as I do on my nylon string guitar. So if I play a chord here, so something else interesting about this guitar is I've got it tuned down. I've got it tuned down to D, so it's actually 2 semitones lower than a standard tuning. That's something else I thought was very good to bring up as well. So knowing the shape of those chords and what we've been playing, when I play it on this guitar, I'll have to start up on my 10th fret instead of my 8th fret, because the 10th fret on this guitar, which is tuned down to D, is C, up 2 notes. So C on a standard tuning guitar will be 8th fret. On this guitar, it's 2 semitones higher. Shape stays the same, everything stays the same, but what I've effectively done is transposed to play along with someone with a standard guitar, and I can do this in real time. And the only difference is when I get back down to what on a standard tuning guitar will be an F, when I go to the D would be down here, but I don't really want to play it down there. What I'm better off doing is playing an E chord, either like that or your standard cowboy bar chord, because an E chord on this guitar is a D, because it's 2 semitones lower than what a standard guitar is. So here's what Proud Mary will sound like on this guitar, and I'm starting on fret 10. Alright, so I've demonstrated that you can play it on different guitars. Playing a clean note on this guitar is just as important as on my nylon string guitar. And I've also started just to delve quickly into transpositions. So let's see how you go practicing that. Practice as much as you can to get this Proud Mary working to make it sound as good as you can.